didn't see you there. Oh, how cool that you stopped by. I was just practicing my viola, and this might be a really nice chance for me to kind of share a little bit with you about it and some of the other instruments that belong to this family, the violin family. My name is Katie Day, and I play viola with the Greenville Symphony. I'm principal viola and have been for a whole bunch of years. I'm supposed to tell you how many, so I'll say it's more than 20, which is really awesome. I just don't want you to think I'm super old. But I've been playing viola for a very long time. Actually, I started in elementary school, like maybe some of you in the 4th grade, which is kind of cool. But you can start playing an instrument at any point. I just started really early on the viola, was my instrument I chose. And maybe I'll tell you a few things about not only my viola, but some of the other members of the family of instruments that the viola belongs to. That family is, in a broad sense, called a string instrument family because we have strings. But we're a little bit even more specific. We're actually also called the violin family, which means that all of our instruments, the violin, which is here, the viola, and then the cello, as well as the bass, which I don't have one here today, sorry. But all 4 of those instruments have a lot of similar features. They're kind of like cousins. So they have similar characteristics, and some of those characteristics are really easy to see, like all of our instruments are made out of wood. It's usually spruce or maple. On the front or back is a piece of maple. Not really ready to be an instrument, but where you would maybe start if you were going to make a violin, a viola, cello, or a bass. And that wood is carved or shaped and cut on using kind of a pattern. This is a pattern that you might use if you were going to make a violin. My husband actually makes or tries to make and repair violins and violas and cellos, so this is something from his shop, and that's kind of cool because you can really see that even though this is a violin pattern, you know, it's totally similar to my viola pattern as well as the cello shape. So that's kind of cool. We all have the same basic building materials, which is wood, and we're formed in very much the same way. We all have strings. These are old cello strings, which you can see, and the strings are made of different kinds of metal. Depending on the instrument size, your strings will be different thicknesses. So the really big instruments, the bass and the cello, their strings are super thick. The violin and viola strings are less thick. And maybe you can see if I hold this violin, who's missing a few strings, but you can see that one of those strings is a little thicker, but then the top string on the very end is like super thin. Okay, so the size instrument will affect the sort of the width or diameter of the string. And the strings are all in slightly different tunings, also based on the instrument size. So if I have smaller instruments, my pitch is going to be higher. And then as the instruments get bigger, my pitch gets a little bit lower. So the violin makes the highest sounds, obviously, because, let's see if I can multitask. You can see that, you know, the violin is smaller than the viola, and of course it's smaller than the cello. So its sounds are super high, and I bet that you've maybe heard a violin, or maybe will in one of the other videos that my friends from the symphony are making, one of my violin friends. Viola sounds are kind of in the middle. This is my lowest note, right? I can go kind of high, but not nearly as high as my violin friends, okay? The cello, I'm not going to play the cello because I don't really play the cello, but I'm looking at my husband's cello here, and the cello goes that low, which is lower than the viola, okay? The bass, which I'm sure you'll meet in another maybe segment from another musician who actually plays the bass goes super low. It's really cool, and you know, that's because it's like so giant. Okay, so the different sizes affect our tone of voice. I'm gonna just kind of tell you a little bit and do a little like science minute here about how instruments in the violin family produce sound, for those of you that are like interested in that, which I hope is everybody. What happens is we have this piece of equipment, all of us, violins, violas, cellos, and bass players. It's called a bow, and the bow is basically made of 2 parts. I'll take this other bow here. The top part is wood, and then the bottom part is horsehair from the tail of a horse. And I'll even like do this cool thing where I show you that it's from the tail of a horse. Bear with me. So I'm taking my bow apart just to demo. This is not something that you should do if you get a bow to look at. But you know, you can see it's like a whole bunch of horse hairs from the tail of the horse. They don't hurt it. They just give it a little haircut. And those hairs come together in a group, kind of like a paintbrush when I tighten the screw all the way. And then when I push and pull the strings with the horsehair, I get a really cool basic sound that we make all the time on string instruments. It sounds like this. You've already heard me do it, but I'll do it again. So I'm just taking the horsehair of my viola bow and I'm pushing and pulling different strings, and it's making the strings vibrate. When I do that, that's called arco, playing with the horsehair. There's another way that I can get my strings to vibrate. It's a little different sound. It's kind of a cool texture, and that's instead of using the horsehair to push pull, I actually use my finger. That's called pizzicato, which is an Italian word, and it just means to pluck the string. And you know, that's a cool thing that string players do. We'll sometimes play partially with the bow, and then maybe partially plucking. So it's kind of a cool variation on how we can make sound. Now, the science part that I alluded to earlier is like, how do we make the sound, you know, whether we're using our bow or pizzicato, like what's happening? So what's happening is the strings are wiggling. Whichever way I'm using, you know, if I'm using my bow, the strings are wiggling. If I'm using my finger, they're wiggling. And the wiggling is going through the bridge. This is a cello bridge, so it's really super giant. But, you know, my viola bridge is not as giant, but it's, you know, you can see it's the same thing. The bridge takes the vibrations from the string and it like moves them through the feet into the wood of the instrument, and actually inside, you can see I have these holes on my instrument. The inside of my instrument's hollow, so the vibrations go through the bridge. They kind of like travel through the bridge. They go inside the instrument. There is this super cool thing we all have. This is a giant version, but it's a sound post, and the sound post, which is inside my instrument, takes the vibrations and moves them to the bottom of the instrument. And then the wood, because wood reacts to vibrations, the wood like receives the vibrations and then sends them out through, ready, these holes again. So these holes are super important. If I cover them up and play, you can't really hear. They're kind of like, you know, my amplifiers. Okay, so vibrations are really important, and it's really neat on a string instrument. You can actually feel the wood wiggle as you play a little bit. You can feel it like under your chin if you play the violin or the viola, or if you play cello, you know, you might feel it like in your knees where you're holding the instrument. I actually, when my husband plays his cello downstairs in our house, when I'm upstairs, I can feel his cello vibrate through our wood floors. So these vibrations are like super important. They're happening, and I think that's one of the cool things about playing a string instrument. Okay, so that we're done with our science minute. I hope that was interesting. So vibrations, vibrations, vibrations. Okay, I'm supposed to tell you what my favorite piece of music is. That's a really tough one. I'd like to know what your favorite piece of music is too, but I guess, let's see, I don't know. Well, first of all, I like any favorite piece of music that includes the viola, but I'm really open to all kinds of styles. I definitely like to play pieces that are like really song-like. So there's a really beautiful piece for viola. That I like a lot, and it's just really fun to kind of feel like you're singing on your instrument. So I don't know if I have a favorite piece, but I certainly do like playing really beautiful singy pieces on my instrument. Maybe we'll take a minute and just demonstrate a little fun piece on the viola that you may or may not know. It's an older piece written by a composer named Johann Sebastian Bach. And it's kind of fun because it's not only beautiful in sound, but it's actually music for dancing. I like to dance, so putting music and dance together is really, really fun, and I like that because it's got lots of cool shapes. Okay, I thought it might be kind of fun because maybe you don't know any musicians that work as musicians. Maybe you do, but if you don't, musicians are kind of interesting people because, well, our jobs are interesting. I don't know if we're always interesting, but our jobs are, because, you know, we work a lot of times when other people don't. We're performing, you know, on the weekends. We perform on holidays sometimes, you know, Christmas concerts, Halloween concerts. So our, you know, our lifestyle is a little bit different. Typically, or often, a lot of musicians that play their instruments for a living maybe play in more than one place, so they might travel to different places and play. You know, you might play with the Spartanburg Symphony, you might play with the Greenville Symphony. I have friends that go to Asheville, and that's really nice because, you know, you always have like different folks that you're making music with and different sort of scenes. Some musicians also teach. I'm someone that teaches a lot, actually. I teach at a school called the South Carolina Governor's School for the Arts and Humanities, which is really an awesome job for me to be able to have. So I teach music, and then I play in the symphony, you know, as well. So that's kind of nice. They work together. I also teach privately. A lot of my musician friends teach privately. And then some musician friends maybe have even another job that's not necessarily in music, just, you know, to kind of give them some variety. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to find enough music jobs, you know, to make it all work so that you can live comfortably. But also sometimes people like to have variety. So I think musicians can be really different in how they live their lives professionally. Okay, I got a few more things that I'm supposed to tell you since you popped in. One of them is like, is there something interesting and unique about me? I don't know. I think I'm kind of boring, actually, but maybe I can tell you about my passion for taking care of the earth and being a really responsible environmentalist. I'm really passionate about that, and, you know, maybe that's something that you've been hearing about and talking about with your teachers and family members and friends. So I'm like really committed to that. I ride my bike wherever I can to rehearsal. I have a special backpack case where I can take my instrument with me on my back on my bicycle, so I don't always have to drive my car. I recently bought an electric car, which is really cool because I wanted to try not to use gasoline. And one other interesting thing related to that topic is we don't have a clothes dryer. We hang all our clothes up on a drying rack, again, to save energy. So I don't know, that's something I'm passionate about, and maybe it's interesting to you, and maybe even inspiring. You know, maybe not getting a plastic bag every time you go to the grocery store is something that you might want to consider. Okay, so let's see. The only last thing I have to do is tell you, or encourage you, or inspire you, hopefully, to join strings or band when it's your opportunity to do so. So that would be in the 6th grade in Greenville County. We have an amazing opportunity to take strings or band for free in your middle school. So, you know, that's what I did. I was a little younger because I came from Wisconsin, so we could do it in the 4th grade instead of 6th grade. But it doesn't matter what age you start. It's always awesome to begin learning. And, you know, it's in the school, it's free. You'll have an expert teacher that'll help you. And pretty soon, with just a few lessons, you might be able to play this. Or this. So once you know how to play an instrument, you can kind of choose what styles of music you like, and on your own explore. There are lots of books of like movie pieces that were transcribed for viola, violin, French horn, whatever instrument you decide to play, and that's a really cool thing because you can express yourself through your instrument. So I think that's all I sort of have to share with you today. I am so glad that you stopped by. Thank you for keeping me company on this kind of rainy Saturday afternoon. So I hope everything is going well with you and your music studies at school, and look forward to seeing you at the Peace Center at a concert soon. Okay, bye.